please subscribe. It will really help my channel if you did subscribe. And like and comment. Please. It's rectangular on the screen, but trapezoid in real life. This time I figured out how to use autofocus, so hopefully we won't lose the sight of the drawing. As usual, everything is totally unscripted, and I don't know what's going to transpire. I'm just going to roll and start. I'm just kind of going to be whimsical to start with. There's little lines here. Why not? For the technical reasons, to avoid smudging, I will start in the upper left corner. This new white pencil, also in the interest of least distraction, I got a whole set of them and they are pretty nice. This one seems to be softer. I think it's just a regular number 2 pencil. Oh, this will show. With quite a soft graphite. So I have to be a little bit more mindful and careful. Just one little thing can change the entire attitude towards a project. All right. So as usual, the goal for me is to let go of all the expectations. The only expectation is that obviously it's a graphite on paper. There's no way around it, but other than that, no judgment, no expectations. What comes out, comes out. The same goes for the words or no words. I mean, the words are unavoidable because the thoughts are there. And of course, I can put myself in the meditative state so deep that I no longer have thoughts, or at least thoughts that can be verbalized. Look how dark this graphite gets, and even with very light pressure I get very dark values. It's going to be interesting. I think this pencil, I didn't even know that pencils had a range, but this pencil has more of a range than other pencils I worked with. I can achieve quite a lot of darkness with moderate pressure, but I can also achieve quite a light value with very light pressing. Almost, I nearly hover the graphite above the paper. It's almost as if I don't touch the paper here. But here it's kind of a medium. It will be a different experience, and probably it will end up with different outcome. As far as the difference can be considered in this activity, when you look at the thumbnails on the page, they are almost identical. It's very continuous, and I don't expect to get views or likes or reactions or comments, because it's a little bit more about leaving something behind, making a record of a brain that once lived, and maybe some archaeologists, digital archaeologists in the future will unearth it, and they will have a glimpse into a boring human's mind. Yeah, this pencil gives me a little bit more of a workout and a little bit more of an exercise in control. I feel like it requires a lot more control from me because it's a little softer. And sometimes having a tool that's a little too easy to use can be this little off-putting, a little bit awkward. Especially if you worked with kind of crappy tools your whole life, and then suddenly you're given this, let's say, very sharp knife, and if you are used to chopping your vegetables with very dull knives, and someone gives you this high-end Japanese knife, and it's so sharp that it feels like it's too easy almost, and you have to work hard to kind of get used to the new tool, develop a little bit more nuance in the way you control it. As I feel here, I just need to really pay attention to the level of pressure, the irregularities of the paper. Even though it's quite a smooth piece of paper, it still has a graininess to it, and there are certain structures of the paper that dictate some of the shapes that show up. So I haven't done the session in quite a while. I was just jet-lagged after the Europe trip. I've been in the States for over a week now, and the jet lag kind of always takes a toll. The funny thing about coming back, going west, is because the jet lag turns me into a morning person. I would get up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. and actually I feel very energized, ironically. Oh, it's 5 a.m. and I'm up and everybody else is asleep, and it feels like the whole world is mine and I can do whatever I want until 9 a.m. when everybody starts the day, basically. And I have this I call it jet lag high, and it kind of wears off, and sometimes it ends with a crash where I go from this euphoria to a total dismay and almost depression. I have a post jet lag blues, and then it just equalizes and I'm normal again. So I think with this activity, I think it will help me. It always helps me to kind of ground myself, find that sweet spot of the mind activity that's kind of on a very low frequency. There's a little bit of focus required, but just enough to kind of keep my mind occupied and help me kind of regulate my thinking process. Takes my mind off of the kind of obsessive thoughts that come from daily news or things I've said or done 20 years ago that are still haunting me. All the very useless kind of noise that we are plagued with. This kind of gentle focus, a little bit of concentration on a task, inconsequential task. There are really no deadlines, no punishment for getting it all wrong. It's just this, and it's just process. There's no end. There's no end result. This already is the end result, and that's apparently very difficult to achieve this kind of mind state, especially when it comes to things we do, like fitness, art, all types of work that we do. It's just we are trapped in this thinking that everything leads towards an end result, and even the end result is not the final goal, because the final goal is what we get for that end result. So if you do well at work, of course your satisfaction at having your job well done is a reward, but you expect more from it. You expect a promotion, a salary, better salary, maybe raise. So it just sort of becomes a fact that the work isn't its own reward. It's what you get for the work. It's like that, a dog that did the tricks and gets a snack. The dog, maybe there are some dogs that conceive of doing tricks as pleasurable as the ends in themselves, but they do count on, mostly dogs count on the reward. If they do this, then they get a treat, and that's how we think about everything we do. It's not the thing we do that we value, it's what we get for the work. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not judging it, it's just the kind of the way we set it up. Whereas I feel like it's very nice to work towards developing an activity that is process oriented and doesn't even predict the final result to be the reward, not to mention a salary or some kind of treat you get for that work. The process itself, the meditative state of flow you put yourself in, is already a reward. It's already happening. So that's the kind of concept of happiness that we also don't have a good grasp of, where we see happiness as a final result for something, but we don't see happiness as a state, as a process. We don't focus on the journey. It's kind of a cliche. We don't focus on the journey, we focus on destination. While the journey can be much more rewarding. As a child, I always preferred the journey itself. I was always more excited about the bus trip. We would take these vacation trips on the clunky bus, and it would be very slow going because the roads were not very good and the bus was not very fast. So it would be like an overnight trip to a nice vacation spot. And of course, my parents were anxious to get there and unpack and start vacation. And for me, it was the trip itself was magical. like, I remember being on the bus, and I was small enough to be able to kind of stretch myself out on two seats, because the bus was empty enough, and I had comfortable sleep overnight. But also I was so excited that, of course, I didn't even think about sleeping. And I remember riding that bus at night, looking up. There's a little skylight in the roof of the bus, and I would look up, and sometimes the sky would be clear, and I would look at the stars. Light pollution back then was not very severe. We would just go through these small villages and areas where there was just a road and nothing else, and the stars would be very bright. But what struck me was that I could see the stars, and they were, even though I perceived the bus as moving pretty quickly, the stars were fixed, they weren't moving. That really kind of made me wonder about the nature of things and distances. I was still a little too young to kind of understand how the stars work and how far they really are. And as a child, I had this very childish concept of how universe is, and just like the first humans, I would perceive the stars in the sky as being as small as they appear, to the point of like asking my dad if he could grab one for me. Like, Dad, can you grab me one of those shiny specks in the sky? You're tall enough, because my dad seemed very tall to me when I was a kid. So I thought, looking up at my dad from like I was as small as, you know, my top of the head would reach his thigh basically, and I would look up at him. He's so tall, and then there were stars above him. That's the memory I have of, like, waiting for a bus in the kind of frosty morning, because before my dad went to work, he had to drop me off in the kindergarten. So we would take the same bus. He would drop me off, and he would go to work himself. So when we waited for the bus on a very frosty morning, and it was very clear sky, I look up. There was my dad's, basically, I could see my dad's chin because he was so tall, to me at least. And above my dad, there were these shiny specks in the sky. So I asked him, can you reach one of those specks? You're tall enough, and give it to me. It was kind of a memory I have, my first encounter with the stars. And then, of course, I realized that my dad is not nearly tall enough to grab a star from the sky. So, like, it's interesting how things appear and how we understand them, and how when we learn about things, how these concepts fall apart. We kind of abandon the ideas of what we thought of things based on what they looked like, what they appeared. Like, it appears that the sun is rotating around us, revolving around us, rather than the other way around. It appears that the sun is smaller than the earth, or the moon. Moon is smaller than the earth, but it also appears that the moon and the sun are of the same size, and also that they are of the same distance from the earth. And when we do measurements, that's when these concepts fall apart. We are forced to abandon thinking about those concepts, just relying on how they appear. Well, that's a really dark spot because I had to fix that bump here. So this gives us a glimpse of how dark it can get. should I keep this part light? I kind of tend to try to achieve a nice smooth gradient with this. It looks like a puffer fish, some kind. The eye is here. So I did have a few ideas of what to talk about, and they all evaporated, of course. Oh, so there was open mic in my building. My building has a gallery downstairs, and the gallery sometimes hosts an open mic for young poets. It's run by two ladies who organize it, and it's just conveniently in my building. And then the first time I went to this open mic, I read like 3 or 4 poems there because everybody can do it. So I decided to just read it, and it was fun. And then the first time I went there, I was pretty jet lagged from a trip to Europe, and then it happened again the next month, and in 2 months, I think 2 months later, and it happened that I was also right off the plane. I basically got off the plane and I went to the reading at 7 p.m. and I was pretty out of it, but I decided to turn it into more of a specific, I would say situation specific project. So what I did was, right after I found out that there's a reading happening in the building, I was still in Europe, and I thought, what if I just wrote something while I'm in Europe, and then I would read it after I arrive. So it would be almost like a letter from from the 6 time zones away, and that's what I called it, a letter from 6 time zones away. And I wrote it as me from the past, writing a letter to the audience across the Atlantic, 6 time zones away, and also just about maybe 12 hours later. So I wrote it as a person who sends. I wrote the beginning of the letter was that I'm writing this letter to you, and the shell of a man standing before you will read it for me, because I knew that I would be so jet lagged that I would barely be able to sense any meaning behind the words I'm reading. So the letter was kind of just like an address to the audience, and I was also thinking about Icarus a lot. And while on the plane, thinking of Icarus is kind of a risky thing. And I wanted to write about the myth of Icarus, how there's irregularity in the myth, which is very unscientific, because the myth states that Icarus melted his wings because he went too high, and the sun melted the wax that held the feathers together. And I call for a new investigation, because the higher you go, the more temperature drops, right? In the troposphere, not only his wax in the feathers would be still very hard. Also, he would probably get hypothermia and die. So my theory is that Daedalus found an optimal height where, the the wings were not melting, but also he wasn't frozen, he wasn't freezing. So he probably flew, I don't know, just high enough for the wax to stay intact. But the Icarus didn't fly high enough. So he stayed lower because maybe out of fear he was afraid to fly higher. And that led to actually melting the wax because he didn't fly high enough. So it totally changes the whole perspective on this character as a, arrogant, I'm going to fly high, because youth is arrogant and reckless. But that new light that I propose to shine on the myth portrays Icarus as kind of emo teenager who's full of doubts and afraid to fly higher, even though his dad was probably like urging him to fly higher. So I feel like we need to re-examine that myth. And of course, youth is not arrogant. It's just something we say when we get older. Oh, youth is arrogant. The arrogance of youth. I've never heard a younger person say that. And of course, who's the objective observer here? Older people seem like, they see the world because they've gone through everything, but also they are biased. They will call the youth arrogant because they no longer have health or guts to do certain things that they used to do as young. But I feel that like it's unfair to the youth to call it arrogant. I don't feel like youth is arrogant. If anything, youth is timid. I feel like the young people are hesitating a lot. They still are testing the waters. Often they are, as I said, emo, which is kind of a, because there's a lot of emotions when you're growing up, when you're going through teenage years. A lot of angst and a lot of doubts. So like, where's the room for the arrogance? Maybe only in the movies. So it's kind of slow going, and I'm trying to be a little bit more careful with the pressure. It's kind of see like there's a density of those structures, textures appearing, more so than in my other drawings. And I'm taking a lot more care, more time. So this video could be longer than usual. Maybe I should split it into parts. Because why not? Because I feel like 90 minutes will be my cutoff point. Usually 90 minutes is the sweet spot when it comes to duration of anything, any activity. Like most movies are 90 minutes, but most parties, most events, concerts, plays, 90 minutes, no more. Try sitting through a 3-hour movie, especially the kind that is kind of poorly edited and really painful to watch, where the director was full of himself, or is mostly or herself sometimes. Yeah, and there's like inner clock. I don't even measure, like I don't even check the time. I feel like an hour and 20 minutes passes, or at most an hour and 30 minutes, and I'm done. I'm tired and pretty much ready to stop. Yeah, that pencil very delicate. I feel like today I don't have much of a way with words. It's sort of maybe fatigue, or I don't know, or the focus shifts from talking to drawing more. There's still a lot of snow outside, and it's kind of melting because the days are longer. It's March tomorrow, 1st of March. And the snow held on pretty long. That's quite a winter we had this year. Still not as wintry as the winters I remember from years ago, but a little better than kind of slushy autumn, basically. No snow. Right. It's very responsive paper and very responsive pencil. I can't get over it. I feel like it will look like it will have a vibe of like a aquatic world of some kind. So I like to create these blurry transitions and gradients, and that kind of makes things appear as if they were diffused, the light was diffused underwater. And that's right on, because I'm really obsessed with underwater worlds. I keep aquariums. I have about 12 of them. I mean, I have like maybe 8 active tanks with fish in them, and then I have some that have plants and snails, pretty much self-sustaining. And I have some tanks with shrimps. Shrimp tanks are very clean. I don't know what shrimps do, but any shrimp tank I have is like immaculate. No algae. The water is crystal clear. I don't have to even clean or change the water. Not even algae on the glass. So there's something to shrimp. They keep aquariums tidy. And also, you don't want to change water for them too much, because it messes up with the equilibrium, the mineral content of the water that they kind of developed and adapted to. I feel like I'm still warming up, at least in talking department. But I have to sort of abandon this pressure of like, I have to say something interesting because it's YouTube, and I want people to like, subscribe and comment, but it's not that. I keep forgetting that it's not that. I need it to be just a record, and it's just this moment that matters, not the recording, which is an interesting shift when it comes to social media, where you see people everywhere sort of, setting up their ring lights and their phones and tripods, and what they record has less importance as an activity. It's only what the recording is matters, and they know that they're performing for some audience in the future that will watch it in the privacy of their homes, rather than focusing on the moment itself as the target. So recording really kind of rewired our brain a little bit. It's like holding up a mirror and checking, how is my hair? Am I saying things that matter? Am I funny? Should I keep that sneeze in? Should I edit it out? Nobody wants to hear the sneeze. Or am I performing for someone? Or is it just this? Is it just what I'm doing now that has the value, and the recording is just for the record, as the name states? Yeah, it's very difficult to keep that state of mind of like being in this moment, forgetting about the recording process, and performing and making sure that what I say will be received in some way positive, or worrying that it will be received in a negative way. Maybe the tone of my voice is wrong, and then I'll have to edit it, and I will put it up and then worry, like, what's the point? What will my audience get out of this video? Or I can just focus on experiencing this moment in its purest form. And the recording is just there to capture it, and I don't have to post it. I can delete it. We get kind of precious about making content, even that drawing. The drawing is a content, it's a record, and I'm feeling pretty precious about it. I wouldn't like make violent squiggles on the paper right now, because I'm attached to it. I already sunk a lot of cost into making it look like this. It's a very delicate kind of focus. I want it to work. Like, I can't avoid this feeling of wanting it to work, because we are wired to succeed. We want, with everything we do, we kind of are obsessed with completing it and making it work. But failure is not a good feeling. Just every time, like, we have, even like, throwing a pair of socks in a laundry basket, you kind of turn it into a basketball challenge where you want to score throwing the ball of socks into the basket, and if you fail, it's just this kind of disappointing feeling. Of course, it's not a big deal, but like, we want things to work, and that's how I kind of see it, as that kind of exercise where no matter how hard I try to just be casual about it and experience the moment, I also want it to work, to have some kind of value. Maybe this shape can be a little larger here. Increase the contrast here. Yeah, I haven't been sick in quite a while, since June of 2024, I think. So comparing to my days from before the pandemic, that's quite an achievement, because I used to get sick at least once a year. If I was lucky, I would get sick like twice or three times a year. Sick with cold, of course. And then the pandemic kind of trained me to be more careful in public, and when I'm going into the public spaces, especially during the respiratory illness outbreaks, I just wear a face mask. It doesn't cost me anything. I know that people sometimes cringe at me. Lockdown is over. What's this guy doing wearing a mask? But it's worth it because it keeps the cold away. I don't get randomly infected by someone coughing at me or breathing at me in a public space. And also if I happened to be under the weather, I don't spread the virus as much as I would without it. And it's just getting sick is a major time-wasting event, not to mention feeling miserable. So I'm feeling a little bit sneezy right now, and I wonder if it's not the next sickness coming in. Although many times I was almost sure that something is about to get me. I will go to sleep knowing for sure that I will wake up sick. And then I will just wake up and I will be fine. Maybe it's the immune system doing its thing. The immune system is fending off a lot of diseases pretty much all the time. We don't give enough credit to our immune system. Alright, so is it like more of the same, and is it really important? Like, how long am I going to keep on with this? Like, am I going to get bored with it? Because I feel sometimes like I'm kind of bored with it. Maybe I should move on to something else. But I am moving on to other things. I have plenty other activities. And this is just one of the activities that I use as meditation, that calm me down. So why quit it when it works? Even though it's pretty much the same each time, and my monologues are pretty boring, but again, no judgment. This is just a process. Yeah, that pencil is really reactive. Or is it the paper? It's a little bit like when you are an archer and you're trying to shoot at very difficult target, and you have to slow your heart rate way down and hold your breath so that you don't shake things. And sometimes I feel like I'm breathing much less when I do this. I'm being very careful when I'm breathing, but also it works out well because I'm so calm now and I'm resting. My heart rate is very slow, so I can afford less oxygen intake, and that's what makes it extremely meditative. I think it's, as far as meditative state goes, I think this is a lot more effective than just sitting. because like some of the meditations require sitting and scanning your body. You can, because that's the idea is to find something to occupy your mind with that's very low risk, low effort. Like, so you scan your body from top of the head to your toes. But I find it kind of difficult because I get very sloppy at it. I'm like, I can't really scan myself in that way. Like, I keep skipping this whole sections. So it becomes very random. Whereas in this, it's very continuous, and I'm actually able to see what I'm doing. It's almost like scanning, with the difference being that I can actually see what I'm doing rather than imagine it. And that turns this whole activity into a powerhouse of meditation. But it takes time, and of course meditation does take time. You can't just, read up about meditation and think that you achieved the state of mind, the meditative state of mind. You have to actually spend time on it. And it goes for many other things, where you can't just put a check mark in your calendar. Oh, I did it, done, next thing. It just requires slowing way down, requires spending time, and that time itself is a reward. There's no other outcome. This is it. The same goes for another fitness activity, where we mostly forget about that aspect of the process. We usually want some kind of outcome. We want to be skinnier, we want to be more productive. I saw a slogan once on a gym, like an advertisement slogan, citing some sort of research result, saying that regular exercise will increase your productivity by 35% or so. And like, how specific, like, and also like, is this really the motivation to move? Because then if you think about that treat, like a dog, thinking about the treat, you're not thinking about the tricks you do. They're not fun for you. But why not? You can, if you are a kind of a Frisbee catching dog, catching a Frisbee can be a reward in itself. I think the Frisbee catching dogs actually don't get treats for their catching, because that's fun for them. But the dogs that are kind of taken through all the, like a drill sergeant's tasks, like, roll over, sit, give me a paw. That's when the dogs count on some kind of treat. And those tasks are really not fun for them. Or are they? I don't know. So like, yeah, why are you exercising? Is it torture? Why is it torture? Why can't it be fun? If you have fun dancing, why do you have tortures? Why is it tortures when you are jogging? Dancing and jogging are quite related. So you can go, if you hate jogging, you can go dancing. You can go dancing every week or every day. And dancing is a great cardio option for you, for everybody. So the kind of moving where it doesn't feel like torture, where you actually feel that, like the endorphins are being released rather than cortisol, because it's stressful. That's when you actually get best results. And I mentioned earlier when I was talking about no longer caring about creating a routine of, like, hard days, easy days, because that's a trap. because I ended up feeling like I could actually achieve more on the easy days, because easy days by default helped me feel more at ease, and suddenly the activity became fun and easy. And because I was relaxed, the endorphins kicked in, and I felt like I was able to outrun myself. I was able to do much more than on a hard day, when the mere thought of having to go through a hard day caused enough stress for me to make it even harder day. So it's like a feedback loop. That's kind of somehow the explanation for why some people find everything with ease, or are able to achieve things with this ease and humor, fun, and some others are struggling and trying over and over and failing and getting frustrated, whereas the others are like just laughing their way through it and it works. Things become easier. Your brain actually works better when you are relaxed, and that's a fact. Try counting backwards when you're stressed. It's a little harder. Anxiety, by design, anxiety creates a tunnel vision in our perception, because it makes us focus on escape or fight, nothing else. And that's when we forget even the easiest facts. I'm skeptical about this viral street surveys where the interviewer would ask people very easy questions all of a sudden, and people seem very dumb because they don't know these answers. But I feel like if I was in this position, if someone suddenly pointed a camera at me and a microphone and asked me, what language is spoken in the UK, I would be like, I would take a pause. Or, like really easy questions, like how many days does it take for the Earth to rotate around its axis? Some people couldn't answer that question, and my theory is that it's not that they're dumb, it's that they were caught unawares. Maybe they were thinking about something else, and then they were stressed and kind of startled by the camera. So yeah, our mind is tricky, and that's how we create assumptions also. Like we judge someone based on our first impression of a person and their performance when they were not at their best. Maybe they were anxious, We are quick to judge, but we don't consider those other possible explanations for why someone appeared the way they did. And we judge them right away, and then we spread the word. We say, oh, that person is not all there. And then everybody kind of steers clear of that person, and that's how reputations are being built, based on some kind of vague judgment someone made. And it happens quite a lot. It's like one person says something about other person to a group of people, and then suddenly, I felt that at work sometimes. Like I knew that there was this one person that really had some beef with me, but then they would start working shifts with more people that used to be kind and nice to me, and then over time, given enough time spent with that person who didn't think much of me, that person who liked me before kind of started acting weird around me and just sort of withdrew, and it almost felt like it's very suggestive. Someone has some like misguided opinions about you, and they spread it everywhere, and then suddenly infect others with that idea, and then before you know it, you're being ostracized for no good reason, and you have to work hard to kind of build that reputation back. Anyway, I quit my job, so it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, there's always some kind of weird dynamics in any job. Like, it's very rare that you find very kind of nice, healthy environment at work. There's always some kind of toxic stuff going on to some extent, and you always find yourself in a conflict, and then someone else is like forcing their drama on you, and everything turns into a soap opera suddenly, and you want to be left alone. You kind of find yourself entangled in those weird dramas, and then you zoom out, and then you look back at it, and you're like, wait, why was I so worked up about it? It's a matter of perspective. It's like, you find yourself in a new environment where you're kind of neutral about it, and then enough time passes and you suddenly, you're a passionate defender of endangered frogs because you start caring about it, whereas before you didn't even think about those frogs, and you're like, it becomes your major life goal and a battle you're fighting now, only because you've been immersed in it for a while. That same goes for the dramas that people kind of force upon you, and before you know it, you just start getting entangled with these like issues and overthinking stuff. Right, I feel like this might have to be multiple part kind of deal. Also, I'm losing light on this side. I might have to readjust it. If that helps. Maybe more uniform like that. Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Please subscribe. It will really help my channel if you did subscribe. And like and comment. Please. Why don't you like me? Deep down, I do want that. I do want people to like me. Subscribe. Subscription is kind of like, the code for liking someone. It's almost like instead of asking your crush, you want to go steady, it's like the new vocabulary would be, you want to subscribe to me? Subscribe to me. Kind of like in Black Mirror episode where, I'm not sure if I remember which, one of the newer, probably the most recent season of Black Mirror, where there was an option where you could erase someone in real life, kind of like block them, and then because everybody had some kind of implant in their brain, when you blocked someone, they couldn't see you clearly or hear you, so you would appear to them like a blurry blob. So like if you have a falling out with your spouse could block you, and that meant that you would be to them, in their perception, you would be a blurry blob, and then also your spouse would become a blurry blob that just you can hear what they're saying, you can see them, and it's just felt like a really painful experience to be blocked in real life like that. And I forgot why I'm talking about it, which is the nature of this kind of stream of consciousness runs. One thing leads to another. Oh, I think I encountered a chunk of carbon in the graphite. Sometimes there are these chunks that make the drawing a little bit more scratchy, and then when you go past it, it will get dislodged. Yeah, I don't know, my nose feels pretty stuffy. I feel like this could be it this time. Yeah, I also feel like I probably need to stop and get some dinner. All right, so this is part 1.